Hello everyone again, and welcome to the panel about what happens after you sign with an agent. Before we start, could each of you introduce yourselves, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ava J. I'm the author of Beyond the Red, a young adult sci-fi novel about an uprising on a distant alien planet that threatens the reign of a teen alien queen. It came out this March.
I'm Corinne Donovis. I am the author of Otherbound, young adult fantasy novel that came out in 2014, and On the Edge of Gone, which came out this March. And I'm represented by Amy Joan Paquette of Erin Murphy Literary Agency.
Eric?
Oh, hey. Hi, I'm Eric Smith. I'm the author of the YA series Inked, and I'm represented by Dawn Frederick at Red Sofa Literary.
And you're also an agent.
Yes.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes.
See, I'm really bad at the alphabet. This is the second day in a row. You would have thought that I practiced. Eva, I was literally just typing that to you.
Yeah.
I am the author of Second Position, Finding Center, and the upcoming YA, The Girl with the Red Balloon. And both Ava and I are represented by the same agent, Louise Fury, at the Bent Agency. She's wonderful. We call ourselves Team Fury. I call her Director Fury. Don't tell her I call her that.
Hi, I'm Nita. I'm a literary agent intern, and I'm represented by Emily Keys at Fuse Literary.
Rin, do you want to introduce yourself?
I think she's...
Oh, sorry. Is it my turn? I'm sorry. I'm Rin Chipeka, and I'm the author of The Girl from the Well and its sequel, The Suffering, and also for the upcoming book, The Bone Witch, which will be out March 2017. My agent is Rebecca Podos from the Helen Rees Agency.
How was your path to getting representation?
So mine was really ridiculously long. I queried 5 books in 6 different query rounds because one, I queried and then put away for like 2 years and then completely rewrote it, queried again, and still didn't get anything out of it. So Beyond the Red was my 10th book, and the 6th one I attempted to query, and it took a long time. But yes, as Katie is mocking me in the chat, I am the youngest panel on the author too. But it still took a long time, so whatever, you guys.
Getting my first agent was really straightforward. Namely, I wrote a query and I sent it to him. Slightly different because I actually posted the query on a forum, and he was like, "Hey, this sounds good. Query me with it." So I did, and he offered representation, and I accepted. And the second agent was much, much less straightforward. I see Katie giggling like, "Oh, we're getting ready." All right, so when I was with my first agent, I had a short story published at Strange Horizons. An editor with Abrams Books read the short story, saw I had an agent, contacted my agent, and asked if I could submit, if he would submit my young adult to her. My agent submitted the young adult. The editor liked it, wanted a revision. While we were waiting on details of the revision, I broke up with my agent, went at it alone, queried my new book, got absolutely nowhere with agents, ended up being mildly desperate and just kind of like sending the book to the editor, and was like, "Hey, I don't actually have an agent right now, but you said you were interested in my other work, so here's a brand new book." And then after several months, I got an email out of absolutely freaking nowhere after I'd already given up on querying agents. And it was like, "Hey, we're buying your book. Cool, right?" So I didn't even know that I was, being taken to any kind of acquisitions meeting. It was just silence for several months, and then a book deal out of nowhere, even though I didn't have an agent. So then I took the book deal, and I contacted agents I'd previously been in touch with, and I got 2 offers. So that is not at all straightforward, and I have not actually ever been on wide submission with my current agent, even though we've been together for almost 4 years. So that's very different from most, but it works. Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry. The order of the windows is different for me, I guess. So yeah, I had a really straightforward agent process. I've been working. I used to work over at Quirk Books, publisher here in Philadelphia, and I've been working on one author's series for quite a while, and sort of developed this pseudo friendship with this one agency. And when my book was finished, that was the only agency I pitched. I sent her an email. I told her about the book, and I knew that she really liked tattoos. My book's about magic tattoos, basically, and she had lots of tattoos. She did roller derby. We were kind of like the perfect match, and that was it. It was just the one person.
I had a pretty straightforward querying experience. I queried one book to 2 agents only. It got the exact same rejection, which told me that the book was not ready to be queried yet. So I shelved that and queried my new adult and sold and signed about 5 months after I started querying it. I think I queried like 22 agents. I got full requests from almost all of them, and then rejections from all of them except for one. And interestingly, the things that agents rejected me for were some of the first things that my editor cut from the book. So it was a relatively easy fix, but it was really off-putting. I had a ton of foreshadowing, not foreshadowing. I had a ton of flashbacks in the first chapter, and it made it really hard to get into the book. So my experience was pretty straightforward.
Oh, it's my turn.
Stay tuned.
Okay, in retrospect, I probably should not have queried when I queried, but I started querying my sophomore year of college after I changed majors. Oh, we did battle this out. I am actually the youngest one on this panel.
Redeemed.
Woo, okay. So I... Hold on, sorry. I just got a notification. My attention is not great. Okay, so I started querying my... Katie, he was there for this entire experience. So I started querying my sophomore year of college. It got in like September and got a lot of rejections. And in February, I queried Emily Keyes, who she requested actually my book from PitMad, and I had queried her 3 days before, so I just DM'd her and was like, hey, I already queried you. Is that okay? So she read it, and she got me notes, and she was like, I like this, but it's not ready yet. Can you do an R&R? So I did the R&R, and I got it back to her, and then she was like, this is good, but it's still not there. Can you do another R&R? So I was like, okay, fine. So I did another R&R, and by this time it was, I turned that other R&R in August from February, and then I went and left to go study abroad in Wales. And while I was in Wales, around October, I got another email from Emily, and she was like, so you did really good, but it's not quite there yet. If you're not totally tired of me, do you want to do another R&R?
And at this point, Nita sent me a really long email going, what do I do?
So, but it wasn't ready. So while I was in Wales, because I had because of the education system, I didn't have a lot of classes. I rewrote the entire book in 2 months, and then sent it back to her around Christmas time. And then in February, got the email that was just like, "Hey, can we call and talk about your book?" So, and then I ended up signing with her a week later, and we did more revisions. Actually, I think I can tell the story now. So we went out on sub with that book, and then got an R&R from an editor, which did not pan out. But if you ever need to know what to do in an R&R, please. Oh, also the R&Rs, they're not a death sentence. Like, they can still lead to a yes, even if it takes 3 of them.
Yeah, and that was a full year from the time Emily first requested to the time you signed.
Yeah.
Over a year. It was like 13 months.
Yeah. Which is not, I would say that's not super typical. I'm very lucky that she and I were willing to continually work on this book for over a year without any sort of contract or anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Ring?
Is it my turn? Okay. Well, for me, I actually couldn't like query even if I wanted to until around like 2010, because um, a lot of agencies at that time weren't even accepting email submissions yet, which means since I live in the Philippines, shipping is gonna be super expensive at like, I don't know, $50 a manuscript shipped. So it was only around 2010 and around 2011 where I was actually able to start querying. And a lot of people might be wondering if, well, I live in the Philippines, so obviously there might be some differences when it comes to querying when you're out of the United States and querying when you're inside the United States. And I can say that from my experience, the only difference, the only bad thing that really kind of happened in comparison is the time zones, because there's like a 12-hour difference right now between New York and the Philippines, give or take those daylight savings times. Like right now, it's actually like 12. It's actually midnight, a little past midnight where I am right now. So you can imagine like when an agent emails you and says, "Hey, let's talk at like 2 p.m. my time," and I'm like, "Well, that's like 2 a.m. my time." So I wasn't always coherent when I was on those agent calls because I really love my sleep and I'm being deprived of it. And in the long run though, was I actually wound up querying to maybe a total of 25 to 30 agents, and much to my surprise, I actually got a lot of second looks. Like they want to read the rest of my manuscript, and in the end, I actually wound up with like 3 offers of representation. So, despite the time differences, which is the only like glaring difference from my experience, um, when I mean for other people who are interested in like querying to an agent in the United States, I can tell you, at least from my experience, is that there's no bias when it comes to getting a writer outside of the United States. All they're really gonna be looking at is your book, and as long as your book is good, they don't really care where you come from.
Yeah, I can back that up because I'm from the Netherlands, so I'm also not from the U.S. And I get asked about this a lot. Like, can I, as a European, or someone whose first language isn't English, can you still query agents? Would they accept it? And like, in my experience, agents and editors, they don't care one bit where you're from. Like, it doesn't matter at all as long as the work is good. It can be a little inconvenient in terms of like taxes or time zone or whatever. But mostly, if you write a good book, an agent is never going to reject you because you're from Germany or from wherever. So don't worry about that part. Just write a really good book.
Corinne, could you tell us a little bit about why you broke with your first agent? Just some warning signs?
Yeah, like it's been a long time, and I don't know whether he's still very active as an agent. But things that like tipped me off that he wasn't right for me, and that I would suggest people keep an eye on as well, is when it feels like your agent prioritizes a sale over your sale. In the sense of if they want to make revisions based on what 1 or 2 editors say, even if it's not right for your book, or even in my case, if it seems to harm what's the strongest part of your book, and even worse, when other editors have praised that very aspect. Or if they don't answer your questions, like if you send 5 questions and they answer 2 or 3, you don't want that. You want someone who will actually communicate and respond to what you need. In my case, another thing that was a problem that's sort of related is when they don't answer your questions, but instead they just keep patting you on the back. Like, I've heard this from several other people as well who broke up with their agent, was that the agent was trying to be very supportive, but not at the right time. Like if you want a practical answer and their answer is, I believe in you, that's not always handy. You need to actually get the information you need. And when you do ask those questions and the agent gets very defensive, when you're just trying to figure out what's happening with your work, that's another warning sign. An agent is working for you, and you're supposed to be a partnership. So if you ask very reasonable questions, like if something has changed or something isn't what you expected or isn't what you were promised, so you ask why that is, or if they can explain something that you don't understand because you're an unpublished author and the agent gets defensive, that's also can often be a problem. And when, like, to go back to what I said at first, they're too eager to make a sale and not your sale. So if they want to revise your book in ways that you definitely don't agree with, especially based on only so-so editor feedback, if they keep pushing you to write genres that you don't actually write, or if they suddenly don't want to represent your book anymore because, or don't want to submit your book anymore and want to move on to another book because they're worried about what editors will think if they keep submitting this book, they shouldn't have taken you on as a client in the first place if they don't believe in your work. So those are all things to keep in mind, and not all of this is specifically from my experiences. It's also, I've heard similar things from other people, but even if there's not like one big thing, there can be a lot of little things that build up that make that agent not the right one for you, even though they may be the right one for another. But you need to feel comfortable, and you need to feel like your concerns are being addressed, and that the agent cares about your book the way it is, or the way it could be better, and not the way necessarily to make it easier for them to sell, if that makes sense.
What was it like after you got an agent and went on submission, if you've already done that?
Well, in terms of like between going on submission and working with an agent and trying to get an agent, I found that a lot easier. Like after you finally hit that big milestone, I had to do a lot of revisions with the book I went on with the Beyond the Red, and that took for me a couple months. I find that that varies how much when I've talked to other writers who said they've done revisions with their agents. And then it was submission from there. I think the biggest difference to me between querying and submission is that you have a publishing professional backing you up. So when you get rejections, it didn't sting quite as bad because I knew I had someone who believed in my work, and that was really helpful, at least in terms of like handling it emotionally and not feeling so much about like, this is the end or anything, because I knew I had someone who, was backing me up with my work, and even if it didn't work out with this book, she was still in it for my career. So that was really different and very helpful for me. I think that made the whole process a lot easier.
Yeah, well, for me, I only went on wide submission once with my first agent, because the second one, like I said, we've never actually gone on sub, which is kind of weird to me, but in a good way. So with the first agent, you have to, I definitely agree with what Ava says. It's so, like, it's still difficult to get rejections, but it is so different when you cross that first hurdle. You have someone in your corner, and you know that even if this doesn't work out, you have a professional, and your next work might. Rather than when you're just querying, you feel kind of like you're floundering a lot of the time. So that is very helpful. And honestly, for me, the main thing was just figure out what's right for you. Like, do you want to hear rejections as they come in? Do you want them at the end of the month? Do you not want rejections at all? So figure out what level of communication you want, and keep busy. Like, just write a new book, because for multiple reasons. One, because focusing on it will keep you distracted, so you're not checking your email every 5 minutes to see if your agent has emailed or called you yet. And also because, well, for me at least, it makes me less invested in this book. Like, if something is on submission, it's out of my hands, and it's done. And, I will always know, well, obviously I want all my books to succeed. Like my baby from 7 years ago that never got anywhere, I still want them to get published somehow. But I'm not as invested in them because I have new projects to work on and new projects that I'm excited about. And at that point, you just, like, if it gets a rejection, it's so much easier to shrug it and go like, well, I have this really new cool thing, and I'm sure that will sell. So always, always, always just focus on a new project, and that's my main thing. Aside from that, I can't really tell about what being on submission is like because it's so long. Maybe everything is different now. Maybe they do it via spaceships. I don't know. Publishing evolves.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, for me, being on submission wasn't as terrible the first time. It took about a year from signing with my agent until the book sold. And during all that, I was just working on new projects, fussing over new ideas, and kind of bugging my agent once in a while. But she gave me this great. I remember I was pestering her a little too much early on, and she told me that like no news is sometimes good news, and to just relax and wait to see if something happens. That's kind of funny now that I do the agent thing because the anxiety that builds up while you're on submission. Now I do that to other people, and I feel like a monster all the time. But yeah, Corinne's right. Just write more stuff while you're waiting. That definitely definitely makes the process easier.
I went on sub with The Girl with the Red Balloon about 2 weeks before my debut book came out, which I highly recommend because I didn't worry about sub at all. I was freaking out over my debut. And then I had another book coming out like 4 months after that, so the sequel and the first book came out very close to each other. So that kept me pretty busy. I've also found that I'm the type of person that if something is 100% outside of my control, I'm really good at letting go. Like, sure, whatever. If I don't get a rejection, then it's still out there. If it's 1% control, I hyper-control it and freak out and obsess. So querying was really hard for me, and writing tends to be hard for me. But once it's out there, I let go. But The Girl with the Red Balloon was on submission for 310 days before we got our first offer, and it was about 10 weeks before we accepted an offer. So it got a first offer, then it went to auction, and then we had all this decision time and details to work out, and then I had to choose. So it was over a year on submission before we got to announce and everything like that. I had totally given up on the book. I emailed Louise things like, I'm writing the next book, I would just pull it from sub, and she would email me back and she'd be like, stop saying that, I just sent it out to 4 more people, like, don't give up on the book yet. If I told you that the book was done, I would just tell you. It wouldn't be your call. And she was right, because the day after I sobbed to a whole bunch of author friends about how my book wasn't selling, we got our first offer, which was really awesome. We had a little bit of pushback on this book, on the Holocaust element, and that's one of those times that I really appreciated having an agent backing me up, because I had to go rage and yell and talk to somebody who was like, okay, I know you're really mad, but we're just going to move on now. You can yell at me, don't go on the internet. Because I'm really good at getting mad on the internet about other things, but I can't get mad on the internet about submission. So my submission story was long, but it wasn't super anxiety producing, and it worked out for the best.
So I'm actually still on submission, so I don't know how much I can talk about. I will say I did start going on sub in general last year, and I went on sub with an undiagnosed anxiety disorder. So the first couple months of sub were not good for me, as Katie will tell you. Because I think she got a text from me about every day, worrying and angsty over stuff. And I actually told Emily, I was like, can you just only email me on Fridays, because otherwise I'm literally going to obsessively check my email until I hear from you. And now that my anxiety is more under control. We've actually changed that up, and I've told her just email me when things come in because I can handle now knowing that something's coming in or not. So I guess I can talk about it, because I did get an R&R while I was on sub, which, as I mentioned previously, is something I have experience with. That the R&R did not work out. It was a very good experience for me, though. It was really great to be able to talk to an editor and develop that connection with them, really agree with their notes for the book. It just was not the right time and the right market, I should say. And I think a lot of being on sub is remembering, especially if you have anxiety like me, is remembering how much of this is subjective and how much of it, sometimes it's not you, it's marketing. So remember that. For me, like, I know everyone said work on the next book, but for me, like, I had so much anxiety I couldn't work on the next book because I was kind of like paralyzed and couldn't do anything else. But working on, like other people have said, if you can work on that next book, working on that is really helpful because it does allow you to focus on something else. And when editors ask, you know, what other projects do you have, you can tell them, well, I'm working on this. It's about this. Yada yada. I also I write fan fiction now that I'm on sub because it gives me something. It gives me something to focus on that there's no pressure with whatsoever, and also that I get instant gratification and feedback from, which compared to sub, which is so much waiting, is actually really helpful. So I would also recommend that if you're so inclined.
Yeah, well, that's true, because waiting really is the hardest part. Because on my end, while we were out on sub, things actually happened there that kind of delayed everything, and it was really beyond any of our control, literally, because it was an act of God, pretty much. Because when we were out on sub with the girl from the well, Hurricane Sandy actually happened in New York City, which kind of, you know, delayed the whole process, because a lot of the publishers that we were going for were actually in New York City. And the funny thing about that was that the publishers were actually the ones to like contact us and go, hey, we didn't forget you. We're still gonna look through your book. So if you can give us a little time, I'm sure we'll sort everything out. And on our end, we're all like, maybe guys, kind of wait till the water gets down before you start thinking about the book. I mean, you guys, there's a lot going on your end right now, and we're kind of willing to wait. And when we finally did get the books sold, there was this whole marketing thing where they go, oh, well, we kind of want to extend the time it takes to publish this book because we want more marketing time for it. So we started querying the book in like late November, and it was October, almost 2 years later before it finally got published. So between the timeline between getting the book sold and actually having it published was just a little under 2 years, which is kind of a really bad thing for somebody who's pretty impatient and not really used to waiting. But during that period of time, I did. We really just started talking about the next book and what's the next step when it comes to sequels, or if I wanted to write another book. So it is really good to stay busy when you're out on submissions, because worrying and thinking too much about it leads to overthinking, and that is not really a good place to be in, especially if you're a first-time author. So basically, that's it.
Did we lose Diana? Oh no, okay.
Ava, my agent just tweeted at me about your tweet that I have a lot of experience with R&R.
You're welcome.
Speaking of, What's your relationship with your agent like? Strictly business, or is there back and forth conversation as you write your projects? And this one is for Eric. What's your relationship with your clients like?
I guess I could chime in on that really quick. Me and my clients we're friends. I like to think. A lot of us talk pretty frequently. We text maybe a little too much. We're on GChat together all the time. It's a pretty close relationship, which is important to me. I kind of want to work with authors that I would see myself being pals with. Maybe that's not the most professional approach ever, but that's that's how I work. And with my agent, there's a lot of back and forth conversation. We're really close. She's picked me up at the airport on my way to other conventions that we happen to be going to together. We talk quite a lot. Lots of everyone's really close. That's how I like it.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of working with my agent, I find that it's pretty business. There's a lot of trust involved, but I know the part that differs kind of client to client is when we tell Louise about our project ideas, because I personally won't say anything to anyone until I have the first draft written, only because I abandon so many of my first draft ideas within the first 10,000 words that I legitimately don't know if I'm actually going to write it till I'm past that point. And even if I do finish first drafting, that's still not a guarantee for me, because half the time I'll finish and be like, I don't really know if I want to pick this up again. So I don't like to tell people that, like, hey, I'm writing this until I'm like 100% sure I'm actually not only going to fully first draft it, but also revise it enough to, like, want to actually move on with it. The only time that really changes for me is if I'm talking about, like, potential sequels with whatever projects I've already pitched to my agent, or talking about things I'm like 100% sure I'm going to write. But so far I haven't had a 100% sure project that wasn't related to another project. So for me, I know that's like super different. But otherwise, it's just like typical business. Not quite as palsy, I think, as Eric probably is with his clients, but that works for me. So.
Yeah, for me, I think it's gonna depend a lot. Mostly, we're very friendly, and my agent is super sweet and supportive. But we don't really talk about much aside from work stuff. So we will be very friendly and chummy and jokey, but only about work stuff. We don't really talk very much aside from that, except on Twitter, which I think is fine because we're both busy and we get along really well. But I don't really email her very often because I already have a really good support crew in terms of like for if I need any kind of cheerleading or whatever. So I don't really need to email my agent with that, but I do know that if I do need to, that she'll be there. So for me, it's a really nice, comfortable kind of relationship where sometimes we don't talk for a month or two. And that's totally fine. And sometimes I need hand-holding for 2 weeks straight, and we'll be constantly emailing back and forth, and sometimes be on the phone for an hour, and that works too. So it's nice to not have to need it most of the time, but to know it's there if I do need it, and that I don't ever have to worry about asking for it. So yeah, I'm really happy with this very friendly, businessy relationship, and I don't know if she's like that with all of her clients or if it depends, but that is what it's like for the two of us.
Ava and I are represented by the same agent, but we work slightly differently. Like with Ava, my relationship with my agent is pretty businesslike. I did email her a drunk selfie the night my book announcement went up, and she sent me back a picture of her lines the night my book announcement went up, so I feel like that worked out okay. I have a lot of book ideas, and like Ava, they might not all come to fruition, but I have a hard time sorting out which ones I should be focusing on, so I do share that with my agent. He doesn't see a draft that is as polished as my beta readers and my critique partners can possibly get it, but I do discuss it with her. I sent her a sheet of 19 ideas. I feel like I'm a nightmare client, but I'm not. And I do try not to email unless we have something in the works. So like if there's something in the pipeline and I want an update, I'll just send an update. But we found that touching base on the phone like every other month has been really helpful for us. I'm a super anxious person, and waiting on an email or not knowing if my email is seen or worrying about tone and whatever through email is really hard for me, so it's easier for me to talk on the phone, which is weird because I never call anyone any other time. I hate the phone. But it's worked really well.
Voicemail that disproves that.
What?
I have a drunk voicemail from you that disproves that.
Yeah. That's
Can you share?
Email me with that one day. So yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just slightly different in that I share book ideas, and then sometimes she wants to talk about them. And there were book ideas on our spreadsheet that she said, "How much do you love this?" And I said, "I like it." And she said, "I don't love it, and if you don't love it, then that's enough." So we shelved those ideas. Right.
Wait, so to kind of contrast from that, my relationship with my agent is a mix of business and friendly, leaning more on the friend side than on the business side, and I think that's just because of both of our personalities. Actually, the very first phone call I had with Emily was during during the time I was, I think, on my second R&R for her, and she wanted to call and talk about notes for me for the R&R, and we ended up getting off topic and talking for 2 hours about random stuff, so which is pretty indicative of at least our phone call relationship, as I had another phone call with her 2 weeks ago to discuss project ideas, and we spent half an hour discussing Marvel. So, but that works for me. I think I would be very intimidated by someone who is supremely business all the time. And Emily, not that Emily is not business, but she's still a very professional and very wonderful agent, and she'll update me when I need to be updated, but we've also had to work through my anxiety and how much I need to be updated, and if I need to be updated at all some days. So it's been really helpful to have her as a friend to navigate that that kind of relationship in terms of when she's emailing me about stuff and when I'm emailing her about projects and stuff. I tend to I just sent her about half a draft of my second book, Sad Bye book, that I keep calling. But I need to stop calling it that.
It has a title.
It does.
Sad Bye book is the better title. I don't even know the real title, but Sad Bye book.
Originally, the character that died was named Katie. Do you know how I felt?
Yeah, that got changed. At Katie's request, actually, that got changed. Yeah. I didn't know you whenever. So I sent her a draft of that, and she sent me back a couple notes. So, but I tend, because this is actually the first book I'll have with her that will be written while I'm her client and not an R&R. So it'll be interesting to, when I finish this draft and get it to her, to see how kind of that dynamic still works and still changes, because I know she will have revision notes for me because that's how we work, but hopefully it won't be as extensive as it was with the first book. I've also hopefully grown as a writer since then, so it won't need to be that extensive, but okay, I'm rambling.
It's okay. It's interesting.
Well, with my relationship with Rebecca, it's pretty much the same as Nita's. It's like a mix of business and fun things, because we have bonded over a lot of things that goes beyond our writing. And for me, I think Rebecca is like the person that I trust the most when it comes to my writing, as it should be. And while we're not always online at the same time, I usually get to catch her on Twitter, and that's where we usually bond the most. I mean, we've talked about Game of Thrones, and we're so happy that the Hound is back and everything. And I think it's really good because Rebecca is also a writer herself. She's a YA writer, and she has this book out called The Mystery of Hollow Places. And I feel like it's really good to have an agent who's also a writer who kind of understands the whole submission process that you go through, and in on some level could really understand what you go through because she's experienced those same things herself. So I mean, she's like my soundboard for ideas, and she's always quick to tell me when some things work and some things don't. And she's also really on point when it comes to understanding my vision for the book, because when it goes through like the submissions process, and sometimes the publishers want to change some aspects that I feel are important, she's the first person to be defending the book when it comes to that. So having somebody on your corner is a very very big part of the confidence that you get when you're writing a book.
Sure.
And I think that's how all agents should be for the writers, like, as is really like the foundation of support for their writing. I guess that's it.
Yeah, I know some people who are adamantly against having agents as writers because they worry that the agent might not prioritize their work or there might be competition. But I found it very comfortable. Both my agents and my editor are all like published authors, and it's worked just fine with me. Like you say, it can be really helpful because I know what it's like from the other side. And also, I like my agent's books, so that's really cool.
What's your advice for the writers still looking for representation?
So first and foremost, don't give up. Keep writing, keep reading. Get people who have read your manuscript and who haven't to critique your query over and over and over again until both can understand it really well. And do your research. For the love of God, please do your research before you submit to anyone. Even people who are super legit, check their submission guidelines because they do change, and make sure you do your research. Yeah.
Right, and also do your research on the agent themselves. Like, what if they sold? Who are their clients? Do you know their clients? Can you talk to them? And just because an agent is really active on Twitter or forum or whatever, it doesn't mean they're necessarily a good agent. Some of the best agents aren't on social media at all, or they're great on social media and they kind of suck as an agent. So a lot of it you can't really know until you work with them or you talk to their clients. But I think mainly what I mean is don't just assume that because someone is very visible that means they're the best agent for you. I've seen people like talk about their dream agents, and I've once seen someone mention a dream agent who had literally been an agent for less than a week. So don't call someone your dream agent too quickly. Like, legitimately look at what they represent, what do they like, are they editorial or not. Look at all of that stuff and figure out what's right for you, and what do you want out of an agent, what do you need out of an agent. So don't be too, this sounds really harsh, but don't be too desperate. It's so much worse to have a bad agent than to have no agent at all. You will feel like crap, you will feel trapped, it'll be hard to escape. It's easier to just do due diligence up front rather than regret it afterward. And there's a lot of pitch contests and everything around, and those are great, and I know a lot of people who got amazing agent relationships or even book deals out of those. But there's also a lot of agents and publishers participating who aren't necessarily that good, or maybe aren't good for you. So just be careful and try to figure out what you want and you need, and don't be too easily impressed by someone having lots of followers, for example.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, for me, I would tell you to spend some time. There's this great website that I love called Wishlist, where lots of agents and editors post what they're looking for.
I wish that had been around when I was querying. I love that site, and now I'm like, it's pointless for me, but I love it, and it's so great, and I'm glad it exists. Okay, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, it's just so great. You'll really get a sense of what agents are looking for, right then at the moment. Actually, one of my clients helped build the website, so I guess I'm a little biased to how much I like it. But yeah, I would check that out, and if you want to go a little more, old school and analog, you can go into your local bookstore and flip to the back of the books that you might feel like they're like sister books to your kind of book, or have a lot of common with your writing, and see who those agents are that represented the books. Most authors thank their agent. I would hope they do. And you probably find them in the back there.
I second everything that came before me, and I would also add that the phone call is really important. It's a really good way of getting to know how you could work with someone, and you should have your other story ideas ready to go. My debut novel and my debut YA could not be more different. And it was really important to me that I had an agent that was going to represent everything that I wrote. So on my first call with my agent, I was like, you read my new adult, I previously queried you with a young adult, this is what I'm also writing, this is what I want to write in the future, are you going to represent all of that? So that was really important to me, to find somebody that worked with me like that. I also thought when I was querying that I wanted the warm, fuzzy agent that sent gifts back and forth on Twitter and like texted me funny animal stories. I mean, so I was like, that is what I want. But Louise does not do that, and I am totally okay with that. In fact, I think that this is much better for me, because I know when she's contacting me, it's a business thing, and there's no time where we have to transition from personal funny to business. It's always business. And that really helps me in the way that my brain works. So I thought that I wanted one type of agent, ended up with a very different type of agent, and am very happy with that. So don't limit yourself in that way, because what you think that you might need or want might be different than what actually works out for you, and it might work out just fine.
Yeah. Can I third everything that came with it?
Yeah.
I've got a couple actually. One is find other writers and find that community that's going to be your support group while you're querying, because especially I think other writers understand how numbing and anxiety-inducing querying can be, whereas like my parents were like, what are you doing? Why are you checking your email constantly? So finding people who actually understand what you're going through is really helpful. Also, I would recommend sending queries out in batches. Don't send them out all at once. Like I did all of mine in batches of I think like between 7 and 10, because if you get rejected and you get feedback from those rejections, and if it's consistent feedback, you can revise and fix it before you send out the next round of queries. Definitely what everyone else said about not giving up as well. I sent out 75 queries for my first book, and I finally got an offer from Emily a year and a half later, 13 months later, so don't be discouraged if it takes you 75 queries to get an agent. Also, an R&R is not a bad thing.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a very good thing, and it's not an automatic no. It's this isn't quite ready yet. So, and actually, I really like R&Rs. It's a great way to see if you agree with this person's notes and if you agree with their vision for the book, and if it matches up with your own vision.
Right, and in my case, even though the book that I did the R&R for the editor didn't work out, it did give me a connection with that editor that made it so that I could send her a manuscript even though I didn't have an agent at the time, which she normally would never have looked at. And so I sent that book to a total of one editor, and they bought it. So it can also just be really good to make connections that way. So R&Rs are great, and it can be frustrating, but they're totally a show of faith in you as a writer.
Yeah.
I'm fourthing everybody else that came before me, and I think that as a new writer, you have really no reputation to lose yet. So what's going to be distinctive about you is going to be your voice, and it's going to be the vision you have for your book, and you have to find that agent who has that same vision for your book, who understands what you wanna, what your book is setting out to do, to inform readers about. And when you're looking for an agent, the first thing that you really want to ask yourself is, what is the most important thing you want readers to take away from your book? And find that agent who agrees with you. And that's gonna be the most important thing, because once you have your agent behind you with the understanding of how you want your book to grow, how you want your book to progress, they're going to be your number one fighters. They're going to be your number one supporters, and that kind of support is always the best thing to have when you've got an agent. And build the rest of the details around your book later. The vision is important, and your agents, you're sharing that same vision with your agent. I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, definitely. That was our last question. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
I kind of want to add on a little bit of what I said earlier about making sure the agent is right for you. Another thing to look at is kind of your like what you want out of your career. That's a really good thing also to talk about in that first phone call, which I think Katie was talking about. Like, are you like a very commercial writer? Are you very focused on getting mainstream success and money and readership? Are you more geared toward reviews, literary awards, reviews? I said reviews already. Or like, are you the type to pass on a bigger deal to work with a smaller publisher, or to work with an editor who might not be able to offer that much money, but who very much believes in your book? Or are you the type to go for a bigger deal because you want that extra investment by the publisher? That stuff is maybe not something you know at that point, and it can also change as you write more books and you figure out who you are as a writer, but it is good to think about, because it can be very frustrating, I think, if you're all about the big money, which is totally fair. Like, you can do that. There's nothing shameful about it. And then to have an agent who is steering you more toward more one-on-one or more personal connections with editors, even though they don't necessarily have a lot of money to offer, and vice versa. If you're very much just focused on finding the right place for your particular book, you don't necessarily want an agent who is going to just drum up the money and not care about how well an editor connects with your book. So that's, again, something that might only come in way later in your career, but it's something to maybe think about if you do know it, and to talk to your agent about.
Thank you.
Yep. Query Tracker is a great resource.
Yes.
If you're like me and you like to be supremely organized, it's a great way to keep track of who has your manuscripts and who has requested a partial and requested a full. And it was free when I started using it, but the premium is $25 US a year. So it's not like, I want to say it's not terribly expensive, but like I was able to pay for it as a college student, so that was helpful. But obviously the free version is still very, very useful as well.
Anyone else? No? So there's no more questions, and I want to thank you all for being here and everyone who's watching. If you have more questions and you didn't have time to ask them, you can tweet at us or tweet to the BooksDotCon account, and I will retweet it. And, well, thank you everyone for being here, and goodbye. See you on the next panel.
Yep.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.